Welcome to episode 48 of the Tyre Recycling Podcast. We are thrilled to have you here with us today. But before we dive into the exciting topics we have lined up for you, we would like to ask for your assistance. Did you know that only 12% of our viewers are subscribed to our channel? It's a staggering number and one that we would like to change. Our aim is to increase our subscriber count to 50%, and we need your support to achieve this goal. If you enjoy our podcasts and videos from our conferences, we kindly request that you click the subscribe button below. Your subscription will help us to create an even better channel for you. Now, let's get started with the show. Hello and welcome to the Tyre Recycling Podcast. Today we're here with episode 47, closing in on the landmark of 50 episodes, but we have a few more to go until then. Today we have a special episode of the podcast with two interviews. Ewan Scott, the editor of Tyre Rubber Recycling, once again is with me. Ewan, how you doing? Could you tell us a little bit about these two interviews and what the topic are for today's podcast is?
Yeah, today's podcast is it's a dual interview. You, Richard, interviewed Shaun Zukor at Revyre in New Zealand, and I spoke with Oscar Filen at XTyre Global in South Africa. So a bit of a global podcast, if you like. Oscar Filen's XTyre Global produces molded goods from rubber, and they have some 300 odd products that they produce. And when we last spoke to Oscar, he was talking about sort of looking for overseas partners, overseas licensed operations. And Revyre in New Zealand have signed a deal with XTyre Global to produce their products and sell their products in New Zealand, in Oceania and the ASEAN markets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, this is a follow-up, sort of a couple of follow-up interviews off the back of that news story we announced on the website a few weeks ago now. My interview with Shaun, we had to conduct it 11 at night due to the time difference between New Zealand and Europe. So we stayed up late to get that one done. So let's start with that interview with Shaun right now. So today on the Tyre Recycling Podcast, I'm joined by Shaun Zukor, the CEO of Revyre, who is joining us from New Zealand today. Shaun, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Richard. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Today, obviously, we're going to be diving into Revyre's licensing agreement with XTyre Global, which we have reported on the Tyre Rubber Recycling website. We'll be going into a little bit more detail into the agreement to manufacture rubber molded products from recycled ELTs. So firstly, Shaun, the first question I have to ask you is, the Tyre recycling community will be familiar with the ideas behind XTyre Global's technology, but how far is Revyre from being in a position to produce these end products?
Great, thank you, Richard. And maybe just for some context, I'll just give you a brief overview of the Revyre corporate structure, so you see where the license fits into within our organization and our business model. So Revyre Global Limited is our holding company, which is held in New Zealand, and that's split into two subsidiaries, Revyre Manufacturing and Revyre Global Polymers. Revyre Manufacturing then has two divisions. In the manufacturing business, we have the molded rubber goods, where the XTyre Global license and the processing facility is born out of. And then we have rubber modified bitumen, part of our business that forms part of that stable. Under the Global Polymers business, that's an ad hoc trading business for polymers that we produce, specifically for the rubber modified bitumen, and then also for ad hoc trading of alternate sort of polymers in this space. So with XTyre Global, we've been in discussions and have committed to and completed technical and financial due diligence over the last 6 months, which resulted in the execution of the license agreement for Oceania to processing or manufacturing, and then Oceania and the ASEAN countries for sales of molded products. The execution of the license then has prompted us or pushed us into a position where we confidently would be able to say in Q4 of 2023, we'll be up and manufacturing the molded goods in association with the license agreement that was supplied and entered into with XTyre Global.
Fantastic. Yeah. So obviously we just announced this agreement. So next question is, where will the plant be located? And do you have any ideas about how many people you will be expecting to employ once the plant is up and running?
Yeah, absolutely. So New Zealand is a unique little country in the bottom of the Pacific, the South Pacific, and it is distinctly made up of two islands, two territories, the North Island and the South Island. So the plan is to have two facilities. We'll start on the North Island with our first facility. That facility would encompass both the molded goods and the polymer remanufacturing or the end-of-life tire remanufacturing into our patented or not patented, our trademarked Revyre polymers, Revpol. Those facilities would have full-time employees of 15 direct employment opportunities and about 20 indirect opportunities with associations or with institutions that have the ability to collect, transport, and process. Our business model is not to dispose of tires, but rather to purchase crumb from existing operations. So to support the industry as opposed to going to a competitive environment, with disposal. So, that's our model. And then we'd like to replicate that on the South Island. So in essence, 30 full-time employment opportunities and about 40 to 50 indirect.
Excellent. So what is the anticipated output of these plants? Maybe are you looking for similar levels of output from both plants once they're both up and running, or are you expecting one to be have a larger output than the other?
Yeah, we need to consider that New Zealand has about 90,000 tons worth of end-of-life rubber or tires. It's they come to the end of the life each year, and that's growing between 2% and 5% annually. So there's limited opportunity for crumb in New Zealand for end-of-life tires. But each facility in the two different divisions, the rubber modified bitumen, we anticipate at capacity 10,000 tons worth of throughput on the North Island and about 5,000 tons worth of throughput after going into detailed market research and getting intelligence on the actual market and the capacity to sell into the New Zealand market, which is our main business focus, dispose of used products and then resell them into the New Zealand market to maintain true circularity in what we're doing, associated with sort of lessening our carbon footprint by having to export products. That's not off the table, but the opportunity to actually dispose and consume of product on island is our main focus. So of the 90,000 tons at full capacity, we'd like to say that both facilities would be able to consume 30,000 tons worth of throughput. But I think the South Island will be determined by what happens on the North Island. As soon as we get onto the North Island and we get to scale, that'll determine what the size of the following plant will be.
Okay. So, moving on from throughput, we've been quite familiar with some of the products XTyre Global are producing previously. Obviously that opens up opportunities for yourself with this licensing agreement, and obviously it must be quite exciting, the opportunities. Are there any particular products that you've earmarked right now and markets that you have in mind?
So we through market research we've come across three distinct categories, and that'll be domestic, residential, commercial, and then industrial. So we focused on those three main categories to start with. And under that, there'll be certain products. The residential and domestic is the obvious sort of patio and garden type goods. The commercial would be more around garden and commercial real estate products. And then the industrial, we're focusing quite heavily on the civils and the construction industry to supply products. We've identified 10 products out of the XTyre Global stable that we see as having a large impact on the market and to be able to get to scale and volume quite quickly. And of those, we have 2 that we're super excited about, and the market has come back and is super excited about and is sort of waiting in anticipation to see the products, of which the samples arrived yesterday, which is great. And those 2 main products are products that we know we can move volume, and that's in scaffolding sole plates. We've had a very, very big show of interest. And then also in pallets. New Zealand has about 5 million pallets in circulation. About 1,000 tons of pallets, or 1,000 tons of end-of-life crumb can get you about 30,000 pallets. So, getting into that sort of market, I think, is where we would like to go. Those where the volumes are initially, so that the economies of scale get us to a point where we can start making money, and then we can have a little bit more research and development opportunities to scale into other product lines.
Yeah, absolutely. I do remember I remember talking to Oscar previously about the rubber pallets they've made before, and I remember speaking about how the life cycle, there is, how much more environmentally friendly the pallets are compared to a wooden pallet, because the cycles of them are so, I can't remember the actual figures, but the cycles of a rubber pallet is so much more than a wooden pallet. So yeah, that's obviously a very good opportunity, because these are, your products that have been sort of tried and tested, and that work.
Exactly, and for us, part of our use case and our case studies have been with the larger users of tires in New Zealand, and in specific, one of the larger companies produces about 1,000 tons worth of end-of-life tires, and we've shown them via circularity and our infographics and our models how we can take those 1,000 tons, create pallets for them, and then put them back into their circulation. And that's super exciting for companies, that have got now more sophisticated shareholders when they look at things like ESGs. So the actual reporting on circularity has become as important as reporting on accounting practices. So for us, it's super exciting to be able to display and show the shareholders what is actually happening with a core waste product that they produce every year.
Yeah, definitely. No, that is something, it's also, as you said, that is definitely something exciting there, and you can show the value of, dealing with our waste and producing something of high quality and high value out of it. It's not just obviously a question for our industry, but one for the whole world, and to have those success cases and to report that to the wider market is definitely, such a positive, positive thing. Obviously, we've talked briefly here today about this agreement with XTyre Global, but Revyre do have other agreements in place with companies such as Tyromer and Rubber Jet Valley. Where do you and where do Revyre see those agreements sitting in the wider picture?
So both Tyromer and Rubber Jet are extremely valuable partners with us, and we do have live agreements in place with both parties. The Tyromer agreements, without going into too much detail, are still in place, and a lot of the Tyromer agreements fall under the Revyre Global polymers business, where we're looking to assist Sam and his team with the actual commercialization of TDP. So the existing facilities that they have, actually taking their product and moving it into market for them. So we have some of those agreements in place. We then also have the opportunity to use Tyromer's debulk material in our molded goods, and that'll become part of our R&D process moving forward, and we will continue that process and that partnership with Tyromer. And then the last one with Rubber Jet, super valuable, but because our business model has changed away from the disposal side, specifically in the New Zealand market, we're very focused with Rubber Jet on the Australian market for the disposal of conveyor belts and OTR.
Yeah.
We are in detailed and advanced discussions with some of the major mining groups in Australia that are waiting for some more waiting for Rubberjet to actually commission some of their newer facilities or their newer processing equipment, and then that'll advance that relationship. But we both are very, very much alive and both very, very valued in the Revyre stable.
Excellent. And also, I mean, do you have anything else you'd like to talk about with regards to this agreement? Obviously, it's a big agreement for yourselves and XTyre Global. So, is there anything else you'd like to say on the announcement?
No, just apart from the fact that it's super exciting. You know, the opportunities are immense. Not only with rubber, but with plastic and thermoplastic elastomers and the like. So we've employed in the Revyre corporate structure some seriously good strategic thinkers and some very technical people associated with materials and material properties and the use of them in different business cases and different use cases. So the license agreement is just the opening door. It's just the start of a much bigger global ambition for the Revyre group, and we're super excited to get it going and to prove it up and to scale it as quickly as possible.
Fantastic. Well, Shaun, it's been great to talk to you, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon on the Tyre Recycling Podcast. Now, we have one more quick message for you before we continue with today's show. The Recircle Awards nominations window is closing fast. In fact, it closes tomorrow. So go to the Recircle Awards website, navigate to the nominations tab, and start making your nominations. Remember, we only accept nominations until 23:59 Greenwich Mean Time on Friday, the 12th of May. Good luck. So that was my interview with Shaun Zukor, the Managing Director of Revyre in New Zealand. Now we're going to go to Ewan's interview with Oscar Filen.
The last time we spoke, you were talking about creating partnerships around the world.
Yes.
You now have this deal with Shaun Zukor at Revyre in New Zealand.
Yes,
So,
New Zealand, Australia. We've gone in the Oceania region, and we're looking at another. We're quite close with Poland, Canada. We're talking to USA all the time, and we had a very interesting discussion with an investment group from the UK at the, where's the Freeport? I'll tell you now. I even went to go watch soccer there once. There's a Freeport. They gave us the where we're looking at setting up there,
right.
in the UK.
Okay. So is this the first big deal with Revyre?
Well, the first big deal was with Kuwait, and then unfortunately the shipment arrived a week before COVID of all the equipment. So instead of getting proper training, we ended up doing the whole thing via Zoom and WhatsApp, and got them up and running. As soon as they got running, they declared force majeure and wouldn't honor their contract.
Yeah.
But they only had 10 products, not the whole range. So they are coming back to us because they're battling for products. Sorry, I was turning my phone onto silent. So yeah, they're coming back, and this time we'll be a lot more cautious around those people. So
Okay.
yeah.
So, but the Revyre deal, that looks like been a big market for you.
Well, yeah, everything goes back to what we know. South African market, we've got 3.2 million taxpayers, a very small market, and the New Zealand Australian market is probably 34 to 40 million. That's the target market is that big. So that's a really good base for us. And then the USA is just an entirely different story. You know, they want 6 containers for samples.
So sorry, 6 containers.
Yeah, for samples. And
Oh,
they said they don't mind, yeah, and they don't mind paying for it. The Canadian market is also a very interesting market. You know, so what happened last year after those Global Recircle Awards, where we got shortlisted with a pallet, is a few companies got in touch with me, and well, you know, Eco Green.
Yeah.
They flew out, spent some time with us, and got their samples back in the States. And within the inquiries for close on 1 million units, and in South Africa we have a capacity of about 20 a day. Now we're up to 40 a day. So it would have taken a few lifetimes to be able to complete that. And we often suffer from a rubber shortage, believe it or not. So we didn't conclude the deal with Eco Green, because when it got back to their board, they just said that the business is actually too big and they didn't want to dilute their energy. But they have supported us amazingly. They still, Brad and Andres are amazing guys, and have still told us who they're dealing with in the States, and we are looking at another big player in the States to manufacture under license. So I have to thank you for that that award ceremony, because that was quite amazing, and that has opened up quite a lot for us. And we still believe that we'd like to have 12 sites over the next 3 years. A lot of it pallets, but then you have all the other products which, you know, add to it. I mean, which give you a base so that you don't have all your rubber going into one industry, and you spread across market sectors, and you mitigate seasonal swings. So that's what we were after still. You know, the game plan hasn't really changed much. The pallets have evolved. It's amazing the support we have. For example, you know, Anglo American, their head of sustainability, stays up to date with what we're saying, and Volvo and Sandvik. So they're just biding their time till we can make enough pallets. It's crazy. But if you look at the global market, it's 7 billion pallets a year, and we go after the plastic pallets, which probably make up around about 6% of the market, which is still a lot of tires.
Yeah. We've seen recyclable pallets. Of course, the wooden pallets are recyclable, but they suffer from a lot of damage, and they're all made from virgin materials.
Yep.
What you have is from recycled materials, and they can be recycled once again when at the end of its life. So it's a great product, and it's good to hear that there's a lot of interest in it. It's
you in lockdown, what we did is we did a full life cycle assessment with a pretty good American company, and one thing that came out of it is you could make 8 wooden pallets, would come out of out of a mid-sized sapling tree that they cut down. And if you take that, you could literally save 20 to 30 trees by using a recycled rubber pellet, because it's an accepted industry norm that a wooden pellet gives you between 5 and 8 retail cycles. That's factory, distribution, retail. And a plastic pellet, generally between, as they're saying, between 40 and 70. And our pellets are sitting at 250 cycles and counting. So we've had a lot of interest from the sustainability side. And then obviously, because the pellet lasts so long, when you put a tracker inside, it adds a whole nother dimension to just in time supply, or just they call it, and stock holding management, real time stock holding. So the digital people like DHL and their research institute got very excitable, and one of the really big dairies got excitable because of the so whether or not they could manufacture this range this week, but they had stock there. To be cheaper to move stock from there to there and make a bigger run of a certain product. And of course, the rubber pellets are dimensionally stable. So on the robotic packaging lines, if a wooden pellet has taken a knock, stop their whole plant 40 minutes, because the robot packager just stopped and it backed up. So the from a sales cycle, it's endless, and then from an environmental cycle, it's phenomenal, because I love rubber, and rubber is an infinitely renewable resource. It's not a waste, and you can just grind it down again and again. And we've got antimicrobials in our polyurethanes, antibacterials, antimicrobials in the urethanes and in coatings. So for the dairy and freezer industry, it's just the answer, because plastic is not handling more than minus 22 degrees properly. So at the moment, it's about managing expectations, and it's I waited my whole life for now, and COVID has brought it on faster. With now, ESG and sustainability was a swear word 10 years ago. Bring it up to the board and they'll tell you to go sit with the HR department. Now they're sitting in the board and it's reaching, board levels of listed companies. They've got goals, they've got deforestation targets, and people are, and because the pellet is commercially viable, they love it on ESG, and because it's so durable, it sits on their balance sheets, not as a consumable. So, as you know, the boards can then play as they do.
Yeah, there's been a complete change in the last 3 years in the industry's attitude to recycled materials, and in particular, in our case, recycled rubber.
Yes.
Companies that wouldn't talk about it 3 years ago now can't get enough.
So I always love rubber and making new products. We in South Africa, we got Cape Town was going to reach day zero with water.
Yeah,
huge problems. Some of their dams are turning over water 130% in a year, and some of them, obviously, most of them between 30 and 70% of their water is lost. And everyone's tried, like in America, these floating balls, these PVC balls. And what happens is strong winds, they all go off to the one side of the dam and they keep rotating, chalking on the top and creating other problems. So we've developed a floating panel, little stainless steel wires in. It's recycled rubber, still makes up 90% of the volume, or 88%, and it floats. And we're busy chatting to the Finnish consulate, because the old Nokia factory is now making up specialized solar panels, and to put a thin film 3D printed flexible solar panel onto our floating rubber panel. And it's a incredible market, looking at dams, reservoirs all over the world.
Yeah.
In Europe, yeah.
Yeah. So I can see you're preventing water loss and at the same time generating energy. A win-win.
Yeah. So that has been taking up a fair bit of my time, and the pallets in New Zealand, and just selling rubber products. We are looking at exporting our recycled rubber combined with polypropylene surface doormats to the UK, to the US, because as far as we know, we're the only people in the world who are doing that, taking polypropylene and recycled rubber and polyurethanes and combining them to make one of the arguably the strongest residential doormats on the markets, or logo mats. So we're looking for markets in the UK now. We've had interest again all over the world. So it's really has been a great time to be a rubbery man.
How many products do you produce now?
So we've got it's crazy. We've got over 200 products in our range, but in our catalog, we only run about 30 products, 40 products, because a lot of the other products are composites that we do for specialty markets, and you'd rather just have a targeted approach. You know, we were going, we were invited to speak at the Oceania, meeting people, all the people from government, all their engineers, all their technical. So that's a nice targeted market. I would never put that on my website because I'd have people phoning me about their fish ponds.
Yeah.
And the same with the pallets. We don't even have that on our website because we would rather have a targeted market.
Okay, so there are our two interviews with Oscar Filen and Shaun Zukor. Ewan, you know, on the face of it, the licensing announcement seems like a big success story for XTyre Global, and you know, it seems as though it's more global recognition of their technology and a stamp of confidence for it. And also appears like a big opportunity for Revyre in New Zealand. Obviously, we have reported on the website about Tyrewise being set up in New Zealand. It's been widely reported of having like 6.5 million tyres in the country that are ready to be recycled. So it appears that there's they could be potentially getting in at ground zero with the development of Tyre Recycling there. How do you see this announcement in the grand scheme of things for both companies? Well,
it's good news for XTyre Global that they have this potential market, this potential agreement with Revyre. Revyre is still a new company. They still need to get off the ground, which is it's almost the New Zealand situation is a developing one, and it has taken Tyrewise some 10 or more years to get from an initial idea through to becoming a statutory body. Things seem to take a long time to develop in New Zealand, and there have been people come and go, but it looks like Shaun Zukor's Revyre group is setting down all the right foundations, and hopefully will be a big success. And of course, for Oscar Filen in South Africa, it's good news. It's getting the brand out there, it's getting the product out there, and he, as we heard in the interview, he talked a lot about the pallets, the rubberized pallets, which I think he was nominated for a Recircle award for those, and just been nominated, attracted an awful lot of attention. And he's actually had to turn down contracts to supply pallets because he cannot produce enough of them. So that's a big success story. And things are looking good for XTyre Global and hopefully for Revyre in New Zealand.
Obviously, we've looked at that announcement in today's episode. The next episode, we're going to look at another. We're going to have a topic based, which has come off the back of another announcement. Could you give us some insight about what that subject matter is?
Yeah, the next one, it's another return visitor. It's Christoph from Contact, and he recently announced a €10 million funding that is going to allow Contact to triple their capacity and build an upscaled plant. There's a little bit more in the story, and we talk about feedstock and potential developments.
Fantastic. Okay, so we'll leave that for the next episode. Thanks for today, Ewan, and we'll be back very soon with the Tyre Recycling Podcast.